okay, Patrick Mahomes is in a class of his own as the quarterback of the Kansas City Chiefs. We saw what happened to the Chiefs and to Mahomes when they didn't have Eric Fisher and Mitchell Schwartz available on either end of the line of scrimmage in Super Bowl 55. Apparently the Chiefs looked at that and said, we'll take some more of that, please, because that's where they are right now. The bloodletting continues in the NFL as the salary cap drops from 198.2 to 182.5 when it would have been 208 this year, so it's a $25 million decline. Eric Fisher cut. Mitchell Schwartz cut by the Kansas City Chiefs. Also, center Austin Reiter expected to go elsewhere in free agency. This is another example of what happens in 2021 when you see revenue drop dramatically, salary cap drop dramatically. There's that thing that teams do now. Thank you very much. Now please leave. Hey, we're firing this guy today, but thank you. It's not a retirement with a gold watch. It's a get the hell out of here. It's a polite get the hell out of here. That's what they did for Mitchell Schwartz and Eric Fisher. And I guess there's a chance they could come back at a reduced salary, but they get thrown out into the pile of veterans who aren't stars, who are going to find out that they're the ones, Myles, who are going to bear the brunt of the pandemic losses from last year.
No doubt. And you know what? Let me just say this on these graphics. I hate them because, at least personally, if you ever fire me, do not put a graphic up on PFT saying
it's
thank
already
you.
made. It's already made. It's just a matter. Just wait. Just wait.
Give me my severance pay and let me get out. That's the thank you. That's all I want. Just the severance pay and let me go. Hopefully that won't ever happen, or won't happen for a long, long time at least. But I think the one thing that makes this a little bit different with Kansas City is the injury situation with both of those guys. Because you look at Schwartz, he missed over half the season with a back injury, and they kept talking about, well, maybe he can come back. Maybe he might be able to come back for the Super Bowl. That didn't happen. Eric Fisher tears his Achilles during the AFC Championship game. So who even knows when he's going to be available to play, if he's going to be available to play in 2021. So I think, a few weeks ago, Mike, we were saying on this show, hey, man, the Chiefs have got to be able to shore up their backup situation. And in this particular case, I almost feel like, well, they're just saying, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's just go with the whole rebuild of our offensive line, because frankly, we won't necessarily be able to rely on both of these guys for being healthy in 2021. And as long as we've got Patrick Mahomes, we know that our window is wide open. So if that's the case, then let's just try to rebuild our offensive line entirely. And I guess that's just the approach they're taking.
What's going to happen this offseason and what's already happening now, it's not something that is unusual in that it doesn't occur. It just doesn't occur to this extent. But it underscores the fact that these football players on every team are interchangeable parts. Now, some are more interchangeable than others. Punters, kickers, it's very easy to say we're removing one, we're adding another one because that person's performance isn't dependent in any way on those around him. But even the guys like an offensive line where ideally it works 5 guys in sync, even then, all of these players are pieces of a machine. And at some point, that piece gets removed and a new piece gets put in. And they're constantly looking for new pieces that would be cheaper and or more effective than the pieces they currently have. That's what they do. We've talked about that before, that jarring, I said magnets on the board. You pointed out it's actually all digital now. But however they do it, they're always looking. They always have the list of 10 left tackles, 10 right tackles, 10 quarterbacks, 10 guys at every position that they would call if they need someone. And they have people who are working behind the scenes to come up with those lists, studying film, analyzing contractual expectations. And this year more than any other, Myles, with all of these veterans out there who will be available potentially at a bargain basement price, you're going to have teams looking at their roster, looking at who's available and saying, we've had this guy on the team for 8 years. He's a great leader. He's a great part of the community. But the bottom line is, dollar for dollar, I can get better value from one of these veterans that was cut by another team. So I'm going to do it. And it's cold. It's dispassionate. It is anything but football is family. But it shows you how the family business of a football operation works. Guys get ushered out the door all the time with, if they're lucky, a social media graphic that says thank you.
Well, and I think that what you were pointing out earlier about the fact that the cap is actually about $25 million lower than it was expected to be in 2021, not just that it dropped from last year. That expectation is how teams set up their teams for years down the road. So if a team right now is almost $20 million over the cap, that means that they were not expecting to be over the cap by that much or at all at this point in 2021. So that, I think, has a lot to do with the way teams are going to be constructed for this upcoming season. I think it's going to be weird. I think some guys who are veterans are going to say, you know what, just pay me a little bit and just let me on this team, and maybe we'll go win a championship, and I'll bet on myself for the next year. Other teams might just take the approach of, we're going to have a bunch of undrafted rookies in here, because I think about the Falcons, and they're a team that does not have that many contracts that they can restructure. They've got a quarterback and a wide receiver who are very highly paid. They don't really have that many people on the roster right now even. So you're going to have to probably usher in a bunch of low-paid veterans and probably a bunch of undrafted free agents and say, hey, man, let's just get out there and let's see what happens. Let's see how good our coaching is. Let's see how good our scouting department is. And let's just see what these guys can do. And that, I think, is going to happen all over the league between the good teams and the bad teams. Good teams probably going to want these cheap veterans. Bad teams just say, let's just be bad for this year and let's just weather the storm. And maybe in 2022, things will be better.
Social media gives us plenty of bad things. It also gives us some good things, like footage from the future, exclusive footage of Patrick Mahomes next season lining up for the Kansas City Chiefs. That's kind of what it was like in Super Bowl 55. And they can't do much worse, and part of it was on them, too. 92%, I think, of the snaps were just 5 guys. The 5 offensive linemen with no help against that Buccaneers defense. So maybe they'll keep a tight end in once in a while or a running back in once in a while to help block for Patrick Mahomes next year.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.